Do you think Goodyear wanted to do that? No. If it hadn't been for a union, they'd have closed the doors and said, hey, here's your pink slip, Warren money, see you later. But this state senator failed to tell the people.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Bryn Riley is the president of the Alabama AFL-CIO. I actually got a request just last week to have Bryn on the show, so it's serendipitous that that we have an occasion to bring him on. Bryn Riley, president of the Alabama AFL-CIO, also former president of the United Steelworkers Local 12 out at the former Goodyear facility in Gadsden. Mickey Ray Williams is current staff representative for the United Steelworkers in Tennessee, and he is another former Local 12 president. Mickey was president of Local 12 during the closure in 2020 and 2019, and Bryn was president before that. And both of them have stories that are important to know, that really kind of show the lie to the article that Representative Scott Stadthagen wrote in attacking the UAW and attacking the UAW's campaign to organize non-union automakers in the South. So, Bryn, Mickey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, this is Riley, and thank you guys for inviting us, and thank you for what you do. But I got to clear one thing up. I was the previous vice president. I never did serve as president of Local 12, but I was a full-time union guy for nearly half of my 34-year career at Goodyear.
Okay, gotcha. Good correction. Appreciate that. And Mickey, thank you too. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing on this issue. I really do.
It's an honor to be able to fight back against against anti-worker lies and support working folks in Alabama as they're trying to unionize and as they are fighting against really slanderous reputational attacks on unions that exist. And so the whole premise of this article is that the union shut down the Gadsden plant. And we have, specific facts and information to dispute that in 2019 and 2020. But Bryn, when you were, working there at Gadsden and when you were an officer in Gadsden, there were actually multiple times that the union saved the facility. That Goodyear wanted to close the Gadsden facility some 20 years ago. You said even as far back as the 80s, Goodyear was making noises about wanting to close. So take us back to the 80s and then just work us up till until 2019.
Well,
how many times did y'all save the Gadsden Goodyear facility?
Well, let me take you a little further back than that. Let me take you back to 1929 because that's when our plant opened in Gadsden, Alabama. It was the first venture Goodyear made outside of the rubber city of Akron, and it was actually between Atlanta and Gadsden, Alabama. And they chose Gadsden, Alabama, not because it was a nice place to do business. They came to exploit the dumb white man, because in the late 20s and early 30s, they wouldn't let an African American or a woman work. So they came to exploit the dumb Southerner. My grandfather left the cotton mill in Gadsden, Alabama. He was a looms repairer. He left and went to work at Goodyear in the early 30s as a pipe fitter. It took us to 1943, from 29 to 43, to organize under the United Rubber Workers. My grandfather used to tell me, prior to the union, if you had like a steam leak dripping hot water down on your bald head on your job and you complained to the boss about it, his standard answer was, hey, boy, if you don't like your job, there's a barefoot boy on Sand Mountain that'll take it. So that was kind of the attitude toward workers. And, they're still dispensable to some degree. But in 1943, we got our first contract. We got a little better every 3 years. You don't get everything you want the first contract. I mean, we've been negotiating contracts since 43. So I went to work there in 1978. I retired in 2011. In the middle 80s, 1986, we had heard rumblings starting in the late 70s about, they're going to shut our plant down. They're going to shut our plant down. You don't see many manufacturing facilities, even those steel mills, that last 91 years like our plant did. But in 1986, the company approached us about taking out $30 million in annual cost. $30 million. And we did that through a concessionary bargain. And we actually gave away stuff that my granddaddy probably got his head cracked open for us to have. But it was a tough thing to do, but it was the right thing to do because it gave us a chance to fight again. So that was 1986. We went through some other concessions. Hey, and we actually gave up piecework production. I was probably making $1,000 a week in 1980 building tires on piecework. When we gave up piecework, you got paid a flat rate. So it cost me probably $400 a week back in the 80s. And everybody at the plant refers to this concessionary bargain as the Boaz agreement because the union and company executives met in Boaz, Alabama to do this concessionary bargain. Now let's wrap it on up to 2006. Goodyear came to 4 states. I was the vice president of the local union at this time. I was also the legislative person for USW Local 12. We had merged back in 95 from the rubber workers actually merged with the steel workers. We became steel workers in 95. So Goodyear came to 4 states, North Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas. And me being the legislative guy, I was in Montgomery with Bob Riley's finance department, Goodyear executives, and a group made up of our legislative delegation, Senator Larry Means, Representative Jack Page, who is now dead, Representative Craig Ford, who's now the mayor of the city of Gadsden, Representative Blaine Gallagher was a Republican, and we were all involved in putting together an incentive package. But what Goodyear said in 2006 to Goodyear, or to the state of Alabama, is, look, we would like to invest a minimum $125 million in our plant in your state. And we know what you've done for Mercedes. We know what you've done for Honda. We know what you've done for Hyundai or whoever. They knew about incentives. The question was asked, what's in it for us? We've been here since 1929. What's in it for us? And the state of Alabama asked one question: how many new jobs will a $125 million investment create? And Goodyear told the truth. It really shocked me that they told the truth. They said it may not create any, because with new money, technology, comes less people sometimes. We were actually able to put together a $50 million incentive package. $20 million was promised from the state of Alabama, and they delivered. They did a wire transfer of $20 million, and they committed to up to $10 million training reimbursement. The city of Gadsden committed to do $20 million because in Etowah County, Alabama, even today, we have an occupational tax that you pay 2% of your weekly earnings to the city of Gadsden. We had a $111 million annual payroll when our plant, right before 2006. It was, or when the plant shut down in 2020, I think the latest, before the big layoff started, they were getting over $2 million a year from the occupational tax. The city of Gadsden was. So we put this package together. Now, what we did, we negotiated some clawbacks in it to protect taxpayer dollars. We had a minimum annual payroll they had to stay at or above. We had a minimum number of employees that they had to keep. We had a 15 or 20-year term that they had to keep the plant open, all to protect taxpayer dollars that I don't think we do a good job with today in incentives. They ended up shutting down Tyler, Texas. They accepted ours. They actually spent about $150 million. The state of Alabama delivered their $20 million plus their training dollars. The city of Gadsden never gave them a damn nickel other than the tax abatement on non-education trust fund on the 125 or 150 million they ended up spending. And Frankie Davis, who was the mayor's manufacturing guy, he called me one day and he asked me, so what do you think Goodyear's going to do? I said, Frankie, they're gone. He said, why don't you figure that? I said, y'all screwed them. He said, do I? I said, hell, y'all screwed them. You didn't give them the money. He said, yeah, but they said they wasn't going to do this. I said, Frankie, y'all were looking for a reason not to give them the money. Y'all let them spend $150 million and then tell them, nah, we ain't giving you nothing. I said, I've been around corporate America probably a little more than you have. And I said, when you screw folks like this, they take notes and they screw back. And I guarantee you, I retired in 2011 when I went to work for the AFL-CIO. But in 2020, the number one, and you'll never make me believe anything else, and Mickey may agree or he may disagree, but had Goodyear, had Gadsden got, if they would have lived up to their commitment to provide $20 million, our plant would be there today probably with 3,000 employees.
Mm.
That's right.
And so
We'd have a new plant.
Right. That's true. That's true. There was, I mean, $150 million. There was a plant expansion. I mean, that is a lot to kind of cut loose like that. And so you think, Bren, that it wasn't even like so much a cold calculation. We can make so much more money if we do this in Mexico versus that. It was just,
Well,
or it was a lot.
I think they were building the plant in Mexico because before COVID, you know, Goodyear used to, they'd build all the tires they could build and put them in a warehouse. Well, guess what? That costs money. And everybody probably, even Huntsville, you know, they like a just-in-time inventory because cash is king.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got a bunch of money tied up in inventory, you ain't got a lot of cash. So what the whole process was, Goodyear liked to bring in raw materials on the east end of the plant and finished product going to the market out the west end of the plant. Well, that ain't how business was done in 1929. And our plant was like 30 acres under roof. So, you know, it was kind of scattered and there was some excessive labor that but we could have worked through that. But the CEO at the time that happened, he had a real erection for Gadsden. And, you know, COVID hit. They shut our plant down under the guise of COVID and maybe even idled some other ones. But they all thought that this COVID, and it was all new to us. We didn't know what it's going to do. We sure didn't know what it's going to do to the tire market. But what the chart actually showed, a big sharp decline. And Goodyear thought, and the economists thought that it was going to stay flat. Hell, it actually was a V. It went down and boom, right back up. Mm-hmm. And their Goodyear was, I believe, if they could have saved face, I believe they'd have built tires in Gadsden because the market was calling for them. In Mexico, you know, they ain't gonna pay a guy in Gadsden, Alabama, $30 an hour and all the benefits when they get a guy in Mexico to work for $3 a day and don't have workers' comp or any kind of OSHA standards. You know, if you get your arm pulled off down there, they give you a ride back to a dirt floor shack and 2 Band-Aids, you know. So, but you'll never make me believe anything else other than if you promised me $20 million and you didn't give it to me, if I could get back with you. Now, guess what? This CEO's gone, he's gone on to another $20, $30 million a year job. So,
right.
And Mickey can talk about 2011 until 20, but I was involved as an onlooker. I wasn't part of the negotiation.
Well, and Bryn, one more before we turn over to Mickey. There was another. You talked about 86 and you talked about 2006, but there was another instance in 99, wasn't it, where Goodyear was making noises about closing the plant and the union was able to get them not to.
Looks like he's muted, but yeah, you're right. I think they went down, and I'm not sure on the head count of people left in the plant when they was taking the plant down in 99, but they went to running just the Banbury, and you had a lot of work out of the union and other folks in the community really trying to turn that around. And with that work of them and the Firestone rollover, we was able to start producing tires again in Gadsden.
Right.
And that was in 99.
And so, you know, I mean, there's really a history there in Gadsden of, you know, obviously workers through the union, through, you know, the various, I mean, a lot of the unions today, if you look at each individual local, there's an interesting history of kind of amalgamations and affiliations and all this kind of stuff. You started as the rubber workers and now affiliated with the steel workers, but there's a history of obviously workers trying to get more where they can, but where there's a real threat, workers working with the company to try to say like, okay, you know, we'll take a haircut here. We'll take, you know, maybe we'll do this, you know, we'll try to increase production this amount or whatever, you know, making deals to save the company money to justify keeping the company in Gadsden making tires. And so, you know, knowing that and being part of that and being part of groups that are taking those haircuts, I mean, how did that feel reading that article where, you know, this guy who doesn't know nothing, doesn't know you from Adam, never talked to you during this process, accusing y'all of just being greedy?
Yes. And the workers, the bargaining unit workers, the union workers has actually took a lot of cuts through the years. And Brian can speak to that more than I can. But we've took concessions because Goodyear did not manage the company properly. They didn't do a good job managing. You know, Goodyear nearly went broke. What year was it, Brian? Help me with a year.
Hey, in 2006, matter of fact, I was going to roll 50,000 on my 401k into Goodyear stock. And I went to the website and it was $357 a share. And I thought, what a suitable caliber to shoot yourself with. And, you know, but, and I tell you, one year in lieu of a pay raise, Jacob, in master negotiations, we took stock options in lieu of a pay raise. And they did a grant price and you know, it was a 10-year grant and, you know, and it felt good to be treated like an executive with stock option, but we lost our tail in that. But let me say this you know, we don't do a good job and, you know, in our heyday, we had over 4,500 people in the union in Gadsden, Alabama. And, you know, we as a union don't do a good job bragging on our members. We've got pastors. We got preachers that pastor churches. We got our members coach Little League Baseball. They substitute teach. They're involved with their church. We are the number one supporter of the United Way. When that plant went down the United Way, you know, it was like a Brinks truck being pulled from them because, you know, our people, we supported that kind of stuff. We tried to do what was right. And I used to tell the Chamber of Commerce, y'all hate our guts except when the United Way campaign starts. You know, but, you know, I don't know how to fix it. You know, we don't do a good job bragging on ourselves and bragging on our members for what they do to make a difference, including working with the company. We used to tell management how stupid they were and how smart we were. Well, one time in one of the concessionary bargainings, they offered to give us some of those functions of management under a lead hand concept. They had a lot of the supervisors already laid off. After the 99 deal, they were going to bring the production folks back in, and they offered us like 15-20%. I don't remember what it was, above what our pay was, to do some of these functions of management. We actually used to balance overtime opportunities with our contract, because if I was the boss and Jacob was my buddy, I could let Jacob work all the overtime in a non-organized workplace.
Right.
But in a union workplace, we actually balanced opportunities to make sure not only Jacob got opportunities, but Adam and Mickey and Joe and Ted and Sue.
Right.
And we used to tell them how stupid they were when they would offer the overtime to the wrong person. And they'd basically cuss us out and tell us mind our own business. But guess what? When they skipped Adam and let Jacob work, they had to pay Jacob time and a half to do the job. But guess what? We got Adam paid time and a half for being down at the river drinking him a Bud Light. And you can't keep the place open. So we actually took some of those functions of management, and some of the guys that did that really got a ribbon for, they called them a queen for a day and a suck butt and all this. But it was another example of us stepping up to try to make this damn plant work. When I went to work there, we had a 18-hole golf course. Goodyear was putting about $2 million a year in the damn golf course. When we went to Boaz and took concessionary bargains, we made Goodyear sell the damn golf course. If you're going to make us give up wages and benefits, you damn sure ain't going to put fertilizer out on a golf course.
Right.
And they did it. They did it. They sold it to the members.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's so much of, I mean, really, I think there's definitely something to, there's a whole lot of, we like to rah about workers, getting pay raises and winning really cool things in contracts. But there's a lot of, unions saving the company from itself, that maybe we don't talk enough about. But,
amen.
So, getting up to 2019, 2020, so we can really drill in and specifically address some of the things that he was saying in this contract. Mickey, the national agreement that was in play at the time. Can you tell? Explain the process that Goodyear had to go through to outsource jobs. What was the process in the contract like, and how was that negotiated? And just explain that for us.
But the contract language protected us through that current contract till the end. We was protected. We could, I'm not sure the numbers, but we was had so many employees that would be working at the Goodyear facility in Gadsden, and all your other union plants was protected as well. What led up to this guy's letter is he says the union voted to shut the plant down. That's not what happened. What happened was Goodyear told us they were shutting the plant down at the end of the contract. They built a plant in Mexico, started building, I think, in 2013. Had it up and going in probably 16. They had a lot of hiccups there. You had, I think, the workers struck in Mexico due to unfair, just bad working conditions. So it was a slow process getting that plant up. Well,
and it's worth noting. It's worth noting, Mickey. You sent me an article from Tom Conway. I think the late Tom Conway is my understanding. And he in this article from the time noted how when those Mexican tire workers struck, dozens of them were fired for leading the strike. And that really goes to that's a real illustration of, it's not as if just magically, Mexican workers are paid less than us, and that's why it's not magic. It's because companies are able to get away with stuff that they can't get away with here. And And so, I mean, Mexican workers are they're people. They're the same as us. And so obviously, do they want to work for, $3 a day and a ride back home if they get their arm cut off? No, it's the conditions that they're facing there. And that these multinational corporations like Goodyear is at this point, can go down there and take advantage of that. And they do, even when the Mexican workers try to fight back.
Yeah. Look, these corporations and Goodyear, I probably have more dealings with them than anyone, but it's all about the dollar. They could care less about humanity and what is right and what is wrong. They don't care. They don't care. They never will.
Right.
And in my opinion, the union is what kind of tries to keep it on a level playing field.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, them workers in Mexico, they probably hadn't gotten near the laws we have to protect them.
Absolutely. And so,
they were standing up for what was right.
Right. And so, Mickey, you were saying that Goodyear comes to you and they say, and the contract, expired in 2022, I think it was, and they come to you in 2019 or 2020 and they say, look, we're gonna close the facility at the end of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to close the facility at the end of the contract, which at the end of the contract, after the contract is over, then that's when you have to bargain a new contract. But in the interim, there's the company has a whole lot more kind of latitude in between contracts if they want to exploit that. And so that was something that they were doing, is they were trying to exploit that, more kind of maneuverability that they had. And so, talk to us. They come to you and what happens next?
They asked to shut the plant down immediately. And they offered something that wasn't even close to what they owed us, as far as looking to the end of the contract and wages and benefits. So the union's answer was, we're not interested. They said, look, we're going to shut you down at the end of this contract. Why don't you take this? And our union answer was, we're not interested. You owe us till the end of this contract. So we come back and met again, and we ended up getting a fairly close agreement as far as meeting them expectations of the current agreement of getting the people money, their benefits. Now, we did have a lot of hiccups in the middle of it because you had COVID, you had unemployment involved, and so on. But the people that voted was membership. If you wasn't a worker in that plant, you didn't vote. Now, this lovely state senator that we're talking about, he says the higher ups voted to close it. That's wrong. They didn't get a vote. And the luxury SUV that he was talking about was probably a 2013 Equinox with about 300,000 miles on it. So what we done is the union got these people paid for the life of the contract, that current contract, and they got to get educated and get paid and get out and find other jobs during that time, because the plant did shut down. It shut down, and they got the rest of the contract and their wages and benefits.
Well, and they
now,
still had
Goodyear. Do you think Goodyear wanted to do that? No.
Right.
If it hadn't been for a union, they'd have closed the doors and said, "Hey, here's your pink slip. Here's your warrant money. See you later." But this state senator, he failed to tell the people that.
Right.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
And he was, and so So they come to you and they say, look, we want to close the plant right now. Here's a buyout offer. And you said, no, you owe us through the end of the contract. You're going to pay us the equivalent of through the end of the contract. And so you were able to get that, basically 2 years. 2 years of pay for these folks to try to get their feet under them and figure out something else to do. And that was, like you said, there's no way you're going to get that without a union. That's really does show the value of having a union, even in cases where, management is going to cut you loose, and they're going to do that whether, and actually this is a great thing to note. I just got a call yesterday from a brother at Aerojet Rocketdyne. They just had a union vote to try to organize with a machinist, and they got beat. The union, it didn't go through. It was actually it was more lopsided than I was expecting. Vote against the union. This was 3 or 4 months ago. And would you believe, Mickey, that they had a mass layoff yesterday? Would you? But they don't have a union, and so they can't negotiate over it. Exactly like you said, they got pink slips, they got a little bit of severance, and they said, see, not going to see you again. Get out of here. That was it.
That's right.
That
That's
was
right.
it. And if the union had won the election, then they would have been able to negotiate over it. And people would have said, oh, they're doing this mass layoff because of the union, even though obviously it was happening anyway. And so unlike y'all down there in Gadsden, these folks here in Huntsville who voted against unionization they were not able to negotiate over the terms of their mass layoff, where dozens of people in Huntsville were just laid off. And so I think that's a really that's a great illustration of the value even in unfortunate circumstances.
Absolutely.
And so
but
you were also
these
go ahead.
politicians. If you look at these politicians, they get all this money. You know where it comes from? Corporations. That's
Right.
where the big money comes from.
Yeah, well,
So
this guy is actually a non-union
protect-
construction owner,
Home
construction
builder.
contractor owner. Yeah. So,
That's right.
So I mean, they're going to lie, cheat, steal, whatever they can do to make us look bad,
right.
because the other side is padding their pockets.
Yep.
And you know who suffers? You know who suffers over it? The working class, the middle class.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And I appreciate y'all coming and talk, Mickey, I mean, you were talking about this situation yesterday, and I could tell that this was, I mean, really, it took a toll on you going through this, folks that you've worked with for years, having to start their life over in mid-career. I mean, what was that like, having the corporation, do that to y'all?
It was probably one of the worst times of my life, just to be honest. It was hard because you'd see these people come in the union hall and wanting help, didn't know what to do. And we, and Riley can tell you, Local 12 was the history of Local 12. They got out and helped. They worked. And we did that. We got out and worked and done everything we could to try to help our members. And Goodyear sat over and really didn't do nothing.
Right.
They didn't help whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a hard time for everybody.
And this Representative Stadthagen, he was around at that time. He was in office in 2019. And so this is a story that clearly he was following. It clearly, he at least pretends it means something to him. Did he reach out to y'all during this time to ask how he can help?
No, he did not. We reached out to a lot of local politicians, state politicians, and even a little bit higher up than that. And there's, the state politicians, I don't remember hearing anything from them. Riley might can speak more on that. The mayor's office in the city of Gadsden, we met with them twice, telling them, hey, we're in trouble. We need to get together and work on something to try to turn this around. The first one, they laughed. They said, oh, they've been saying this for years. They'll never close that plant. I said, guys, you better listen to me. We're in trouble right here. So a month later, we meet again. I asked to meet, and we got nothing again.
Well, and on the state side of it, Mickey Ray, the state felt like, hey, we did our part. We gave $20 million cash.
That's
and
right.
up to $10 million in training reimbursement. Damn, Gadsden, you're supposed to pony up your 20. So
That's
the
right.
state wasn't very amenable to helping the city out. The city, in my opinion, the city is the villain. They, hell, if they'd have paid the money, the plant would be open today, and I won't never think anything different.
Right.
I agree, because, and I actually, I wasn't in, I was working there in 2006, but Riley and them's negotiations, I was not part of them, but I did see the plan that constructed a new plant in Gadsden. And if we would have got that, we would have been probably one of the most modern plants that Goodyear had
in the world.
And yeah, so I don't understand why the city was the way they were, but the same administration in the city in 2006, if I'm not mistaken, was the same administration in 2020.
Yeah. Well, and just to be explicit about the go, higher up. I mean, do you care if I say what you said yesterday, or were you not wanting to say that? Higher up politically.
Oh, yeah. We actually, and I never did look the guy's name up. We actually had a guy call me at a basketball game one night and said, "Hey, introduced himself. His granddaddy thought the world of my father, and so on and so on. And I'd never talked to this guy. He said, I think I may have somebody that can help you, because I was raised in the Gadsden area, and I don't want to see nothing happen to the plant." So we get on a call with a guy at the White House who was Trump's right-hand man. Trump was in office then. And in that call, he told us, he said, guys, let me see what I can do. He called back that evening and said, I can't help you. Now, we reached out to him multiple times after that and never heard from him again. But there was no help from the White House.
Right.
At all.
Kind of like that wall Mexico was going to build.
Right.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. It's a, it's a real shame. And I think, and this is obviously just speculation on my part, but, I have to believe, and I would believe, I guess kind of like Brent, I don't know that I can believe anything else. If this plant was in Ohio, I believe that Trump would have been doing something about it. Or if this plant was in, a swing state, but he felt like, well, or if he even thought about it for a second, whoever his handlers are that tell him what to think, this is Alabama. He's got it in the bag. He don't need to work for votes here. And so he don't really care that much about what happens to a plant here in Alabama. That's what I think as far as Trump's lack of involvement. But
yep.
And it's really scary, but a tweet at that time that come from Trump,
yeah,
it moves things sometimes. And we couldn't even get that.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, Mickey Ray, Bryn Riley, Mickey Ray Williams, I really appreciate y'all's time and appreciate y'all taking the time to talk about this. I know it's something that can kind of be difficult to talk about, especially, Mickey Ray, you haven't gone through that and that haven't been such a big part of your life. But I thought it was important to respond to this and have some of the folks who were, and that's the funny thing, like people will talk about this and there's never any interest in we're talking about this situation. Maybe we should talk to somebody who actually was there for it. I don't know why that isn't people's first thought, but that was my first thought.
Let me add this, Jacob. I don't know this Stadthagen guy, but I've seen some of these ALEC bills, and I've seen some of these Chamber of Commerce, and I've seen some of these Business Council of Alabama op-eds. I think the boy signed his name to some shit they prepared for him, and now he's getting it stuck right up his rear.
There you go. We're gonna keep trying to stick it up there. That's the plan.
Put it to him, baby. Put it to him.
All right, brothers.
Jacob, I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate what y'all do. All right. Well,
thanks, brothers. Take care.
Take care.
Yep.
See you.
Bryn Riley, president of the Alabama AFL-CIO, former vice president for the United Steelworkers Local 12. Mickey Ray Williams, staff representative for the United Steelworkers and former president of United Steelworkers Local 12 during the closure of the Gadsden Goodyear plant. Really important stuff to give some facts to some of this nonsense coming from like Brent said, probably an op-ed that the BCA wrote.
Yeah, and I also want to say that Josh Moon did a pretty good column on this, and you and I sometimes disagree with Josh and some of his politics. And
I think this was my favorite article I have ever seen from Josh. I don't know that I have seen another one that I liked better.
Yeah, so I really appreciated him,
Yeah.
Using his platform to speak truthfully, especially since the op-ed, the false op-ed traveled quite a bit. I don't remember who all published it, but
APR and Yellowhammer.
That's
at
what.
least.
Yeah. So, we're seeing a full court blitz in the media against unions here in Alabama. It's nearly every day is some kind of new op-ed. There's a politician they've trotted out from somewhere. Current politicians, former politicians, they've recruited some pastors to do this.
Yeah.
It's really a shame to see this propaganda, but I'm looking at the bright side. The fact that they're doing this means we're winning.
Absolutely. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.